All right, welcome back, everybody. Last week, Matt and I had mentioned we're going to talk about finances quite a bit, and so we talked about an article Matt wrote that was prompted by a letter that Warren Buffett wrote to his shareholders. And one vein we really want to kind of stick to this week is talking about living within your means. One reason why we want to do that is because we both have learned over the years and time and kind of just our age really is kind of how to budget and really live within your means. Like there are things we both want. We talk about all the time, like this new car, this truck, this watch, this vacation, these things just not within our means. And we're not huge fans of putting stuff on plastic or getting in debt for dumb stuff that you're going to regret the moment you get back or the moment you put it on your wrist or put it in your pocket. So we want to just kind of talk about like what does it mean to even budget? What does that look like? How's that actually, is it even effective? And again, it's kind of another principle we talked about how to stick with the long term because budgeting is an investment back in your finances and how to stick it out. So Matt, I don't know if you want to unpack kind of like how you started budgeting, like what prompted it, if you've always been a budgeter or if it just kind of came to you. And so,
I'll just say it like this: over time, I realized that you know the positive feelings and benefit I get out of buying something new or spending money on a vacation is totally outweighed by the anxiety I feel when I've got debt and I'm making debt payments, right? Because just in my mind, again, back to investing, when I'm making either credit card payments or car payments, I'm just thinking I could be investing this money, right? Or I could be spending this on that thing I wanted now and not the price of it plus 20% or whatever the credit card's charging me, right? So that's kind of how I ended up really focused on creating a long-term plan that was, live within your means, don't create a whole lot of debt, because at the end of the day, I want out of a job, right? I don't want to get up every morning at 6:30 and feel and have to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week and look forward to the weekend when I have a few beers and cook out and then we start over Monday morning. But I tell you what, the more of that stuff you buy and the more debt you create and the more monthly payment, low monthly payments, right? Buy now, pay later. The more of that you do, and when you fall into that trap, you are going to be working for someone else the rest of your freaking life. So really, that's kind of my key goal is, right, how do I get out of that rat race? How do I break out of the matrix that I think the consumption society that we've built kind of pushes on all of us? Again, don't follow the crowd. How do I break out of that? And it's by not creating, piles and piles of debt that someone just lets me pay off slowly.
yeah. Yeah, my story is a little different. We started budgeting out of a necessity because we had piled up so much debt that
Well, hey,
we,
just real quick, let me not make anyone think that wasn't the case. I was lucky and figured it out early. But when I first went to college, the first things you see is, are all these tables signing up for these credit cards, right? So my first 2 years of college, straight out of high school, I'd never been away from home. I moved away. Hell yeah, sign me up. And I ended up with two or three credit cards, and I maxed every one of those suckers out, right? On beer and pizza and video games and, other college party supplies. I'll just leave it at that. And but I quickly learned, right? I didn't have parents that were going to pay those off for me, right? So, when I decided, I had to get a job and pay that stuff myself, luckily I learned soon and quick, and I didn't have a big pile of debt, but I certainly did it. I did it stupid for a couple of years for sure.
yeah. And that's kind of what drew me and my wife to budgeting is we assumed bunch of credit cards, bought grills, bought just dumb stuff. We'll pay it off later. Yeah, 36% interest, never lets you pay it off later. It honestly came to a point where we had to do debt consolidation, which I'm always a fan of if it comes to that point. It worked for us. We used a company called In Charge. I think they've been purchased by somebody else now. But I remember the payment was 146.07 a month, and my wife and I cried because we didn't know if we could afford that. And for 3 years, we paid that as they paid off all of our debt, and we learned how to budget. And I had a buddy of mine. He used to tell me that he's like, it's never bad to have a red beans and rice week. And how he would unpack that is he's like, you just eat minimally 1 week. You pick 1 week a month and you eat less than $50 that week. And so Ash and I really started kind of figuring out where were the restaurants. The Mexican restaurant here in Ada, Polo's, we could go and get nachos and two waters for I think it was 8.17. And so that was a heck of a meal with free
That's not
setup,
bad.
and so, but really it was out of necessity because to your point, we didn't want to be another statistic. We had one daughter. We were about to have our second kid, which would be another daughter. We didn't want to be a family with $150,000 worth of debt. We didn't have any student loans at the time because neither one of us finished college. What we did go to college, we were able to pay for until we got married, and then obviously became apparently stupid and spent all of our money on things we didn't need.
Hey, but you know
But
what? That's that's the United States economy, right? And that's the
yeah,
society that we built. It's a consumptive society. Everything about it pushes more, more, more spend. You have to have this. You've got to buy this. So it's extremely difficult because even from the youngest age, all of our children, that's what's impressed upon them. It's like you have to buy more, you have to have the newest fancy thing. You've got to create the best Instagram photos. You've got to be standing by fancy cars, wearing the cool watch with the newest clothes on. So it's, again, I'm just going to keep saying it. It's extremely difficult to create the mindset that gets you out of that vicious cycle that's, created and laid upon every single one of us.
yeah. And when we talk about finance, you're probably going to hear Matt and I refer to this phrase of systems and habits a lot. We had a leader that really impressed upon us that goals really are worthless because by the time you get goals, and this actually comes from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, goals are just really a focus. And once you reach the goal, you either stop working out, you stop doing what you're doing, you stop saving money because you got to go on the Disney trip. But systems and habits create success. We were actually talking about it this morning about how if I create a system that allows me to save money and not spend all of my money, then I can allocate funds to pay off debt, which is one thing we do. We use the snowball method. Dave Ramsey talks about this, but it's basically pay your lowest debt off first and then chunk down the rest of it to where we basically got down to just a house payment. So we had a 16-year-old, we had to finance a new car. So we've kind of started over, but luckily this time we started differently. But Matt, talk about some of the strategies where you kind of, it sucks to budget. And there's sometimes it sucks to be super disciplined. And whether it's in fitness or health or finances, probably the two hardest places for us to legitimately be disciplined. Talk a little bit about the mindset of being financially disciplined to say, I don't actually need that or don't really, is it a want or a need kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think you hit it straight on, process and habits, right? And then you have to have the discipline to stick with it. For the longest time, every time I would get a raise or get any more money, that addition was quickly siphoned out to another investment account, right? So I didn't have a lot of extra money sitting in an account that I was like, oh wow, now I can go out and buy XYZ. I think Grant Cardone says it all the time. I mean, he kind of goes over the top and says cash is trash, right? But he says don't keep any cash at all, right?
Hmm.
Always do something with it. Put it somewhere so that it's always working for you. Because again, if it's sitting in my account, it, you know what? I am more liable to take it out and spend it, or oh yeah, I've almost got enough for that brand new truck. I'll let's go do that this
Right.
weekend. So again,
Yeah.
I mean, it's about discipline. It's about telling yourself that no, I'm not going to create this extra debt. No, it's not okay. You don't talk yourself into it, right? Don't get weak. Follow the process, follow the habits you've created, and be disciplined to continue. And you know what? Guess what? At some point, you know, you're going to be able to do all those things that you're putting off now. You know, luckily because of the way I have ran my finances. Quentin talked about his daughters getting old enough to have a car. I just had a daughter turn 16. Well, last May, I had saved up the money to get her exactly what she wanted. Right, I had, you know, almost $30,000 saved up for her first car, and I we went to the dealership, wrote a check for it. Right, that only happens because I had a process, I was disciplined, and over a long period of time, you know, I created that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it starts simple, like with everything and they talk about like the way to eat elephants one bite at a time. And so for me and Ash, and it may have been the same way for Matt, we started with eating out. We legitimately said there's no reason for us to eat out Monday through Thursday ever, unless it's a work thing that they're paying for our dinner, or we've specifically been invited by friends to go eat out for a birthday or something, and we budget for that. But Monday through Thursday, no exceptions. We cook at home. There are a lot of times there's cereal eating, sandwiches, burgers. It's
I
not
like all that
elaborate.
stuff too, right? And but it's again, it's probably because of the discipline and the process I've created that, you know, kind of leads me to believe that yeah, that's pretty good. But to your point, hey, I like cold beer and I like old fashions.
Yeah,
And when you go out to eat and you order any, you know, two or three of any of those, your bill's $100 easy, right?
yeah,
That's minimum. If you get an appetizer, a meal, drink or two, you know, one or two people go with you. I mean, Quentin was talking about eating on a week for $50 at home. Well, hell, you can double that easy one time out.
yeah. Yeah,
It's
and
tough.
it's a simple habit. And I say simple because I've been doing it for years now. Matt and I, we're not naive to the fact that we have created these habits. And so if you're listening to this, you're like, there's no way I can not eat out Monday through Thursday. Matt works from home, he's remote. You know what he does for lunch? He drinks a shake. What he does every day. That doesn't mean he doesn't spend money at the grocery store, but he plans. I'm gonna eat this all 5 days for lunch. For dinner, he plans. We're gonna eat this. Same thing Ash and I do. We plan for dinner. We're gonna have this. I was telling him earlier, we write a menu out. So on our kitchen fridge, there's a menu. We're having this Monday, this Tuesday, this Wednesday, this Thursday. Friday nights, always date night for Ash. Ash and I, so I act like she goes on dates without me. That's terrible, isn't it? Her and I go out to eat. So, like, we'll go out somewhere, but we go reasonable. We're not going always to the best restaurant. Sometimes we'll just go to Brahms and get two chicken strip dinners and some ice cream because we're Oklahoma kids and there's nothing beats Oklahoma or Brahms ice cream. So, if Brahms wants to be a sponsor, we'll take it.
There you go.
But Matt, talk a little bit too
Hey, I
about,
actually had Brahms last night. So
well, look at that.
anyway,
Uh, can't beat it. Was it we had who was it? JC Watts come speak to us one time, and he talked about anytime he would touch down from DC, his driver knew the first place he was going was Brahms to get some Rocky Road ice cream. And so he would always have it shipped to him in DC as well. He just had a freezer full, and all you would find is Brahms ice cream in there. So and I don't know if you want to talk a little bit too, because I think it's interesting what you said, and not a lot of people talk about this, but any raise or bonus immediately being allocated not to lifestyle, but to investing or savings.
it's tough. It's tough.
Talk a little bit about like what made you do that, because I candidly I don't do that. lifestyle creep gets in on me. I get a raise. It's spent the moment I'm texting my wife walking out of my boss's office saying, "Hey, I got a raise," and it's already spent. You know what I mean? That's how Americans work.
But hey, there are times, and I think it is positive to treat yourself, right? I mean, you can't just go full austerity for 50 years and expect to be a happy person. So certainly not saying to not treat yourself, but I'm kind of weird though. I'm a numbers analytics analysis guy. So really, when every time I got a raise or a bonus or anything, you hear the phrase "pay yourself first." I mean, that's exactly what I did. Right? I have automated systems set up to where they used to be monthly. Now I've moved to weekly. On a weekly basis, specific amounts of money just get zapped out of my account into the investment accounts. So I don't even have the ability to spend it, right? And again, those amounts have increased over the years as I've gotten raises and bonuses, or if any extra money comes in, I'll go in and manually move it, right? Because once it's out in my mind, I don't spend that money, right? That's in
Yeah,
the investments. And hey, guess what? We don't touch the investment. The
yeah,
investment grows, we reinvest our earnings. So in my mind, I've created kind of the barrier that once that money moves from this account over to these, it's gone, right? In my mind,
right.
I can't touch it. I can manage it, I can invest it, but I can't spend it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's such a hard thing. And I think that's so it's unique because I've not come to that point yet, and I hope to eventually get to there. And so, one thing I would encourage anyone watching or listening is get someone like I have Matt that I look up to.
Hey,
I
you know what?
listen
And
to his
just
advice.
and just real quick, I started $50 a month. I would I would move, right? Only 50 to move it out, right? I mean, it, at the end of the day, if you don't eat out once, you're not going to miss $50. But again, over time, I built a process and a habit of just slowly turning that screw, right? Slowly turn it up, right? So again, even if it gets up to $500 a month, right? $1,000 a month, $300 a week, you don't ever miss it because it's kind of like boiling the frog in the water. You've turned it up so slowly
Right.
and you're so used to living without it, you never really even had it, right? So you didn't adjust your lifestyle to spend that extra money because you never allowed yourself to use it.
Yeah, and what Matt's saying is exactly what we want to talk about is adjusting your lifestyle and living within your means doesn't mean that you don't have to be deprived of things, doesn't mean that you don't have money. I think a lot of people here live within your means, and it means like, well, then always accept lower paying jobs. Always, no, you can make
Yeah, I
six
got to
figures a
cut out
year.
all the fun stuff. Starting tomorrow, life sucks. That's not
Yeah,
what
that's
it
not it.
means.
Yeah,
That's not what it means. It could, right? But that's not a good way to make this stick, right? Again,
right.
this is a slow process.
Yeah, Ramit Sethi, I think you've read some of his books, but he has a
Mhm.
popular podcast and Netflix series. He talks about create your own rich life. And so for like Matt and I, we're different. I go on vacations every year. I don't think Matt ever gets outside of Oklahoma. He doesn't like anywhere else. I'm just giving him a hard time. He went to Jamaica one time, got sunburnt, came home, said, "Screw it, I'm not going anywhere else." But when I go on vacations, I love to spend money on vacations, but I don't really care about vehicles. I candidly even don't really care. I like having a nice home, but I don't need 2 story, 7 bedrooms. I got 2 kids and a wife. I don't need more rooms that just stay cluttered with crap. And I'm a minimalist, so I try to keep things down anyways.
Mhm.
Matt's pretty much a minimalist too. But that's how, and Matt, you may want to speak to this too, but that's what I think about living within my means. It's like those things don't bring me joy. A big
Mhm.
house doesn't bring me joy. A new vehicle doesn't bring me joy. Now, a new watch might will probably bring me joy. A few cigars probably going to bring me some joy. A nice vacation is going to bring me a lot of joy, especially if I just get to sit down and do nothing. But that's my means. Those are things I've put into place with
Yeah,
systems
and
and
hey, I like
habits.
I like old classic muscle cars, and I've got a ranch, and I like buying land, right? So those are kind of the two things that I do with that. So Quentin says, I may or may not like to go on vacation, which personally I don't. Right, a lot of people around me do, so I will go occasionally, but that doesn't specifically bring me joy. But I do spend money on other things. Right, again, classic cars, and I spend a lot of money on a ranch that will never bring me any profit, but it's what I like. So again, when you budget and you're saving money, and we talk about living below your means, again, it's not complete austerity. It's what are the things that really get you going, right? What do you enjoy? Don't buy crap to impress the neighbors. What are the two or three things in life that you really love to do, and focus on those.
Yeah, and I think, and maybe this will be our last point. One thing we think about a lot, and we've had really deep, candid conversations about, is we think about things we purchase. Would we want to hand this down to our grandkids? Not even our kids, but to our grandkids. Would what I have now mean something to that generation? Books we buy, watches, muscle cars, land, things like that. That's why we've created systems and habits to say we think a lot about legacy, candidly, just the two of us. And so we think about the things I hand down. I don't want to burden. I know Matt's the same way. Don't want to burden my kids with a house crammed full of crap that they don't even know what it is because I got bored and bought a bunch of stuff off QVC. One thing we do, both of us, is we spend money on education. Matt's in an MBA program. I'm about to start mine. So we will spend a lot of money on education and pursuing it. So those are things that, and Matt, I don't know if you want to speak to any of this, but like when you think about means, that's kind of something that I think drives both of us too. It's like, what can I create for the next generation and even that third generation below me that creates a legacy that I can sacrifice or I can do without because candidly, I just don't need this or that right now.
Yeah, no, hey, man, that's a whole nother topic that we could go another 30 minutes or an hour on, right? But I do struggle with that exact thing, right? I'm trying to build a lifestyle for myself and my children, especially my children, that are better than the one I had, right? So that's kind of one of the bars of success that I kind of set for myself, is like, are my kids having opportunities and things, and are just overall better life than what I had when I was their age. But on the flip side is, am I teaching them that this stuff just doesn't come for free, right? Am I
Yeah,
spoiling them to the point to where, I may have done good, but I've raised them and spoiled them to the point to where when they get older, they don't know how to create a lot of the wealth and the value that I have, and they go back to how I was when I was a child or worse, right? So those are kind of competing variables or narratives that I struggle with. That yes, I bought my daughter a car when she turned 16, but I've also been impressing upon her what it took to get there, right? And then if you want to do this, you've got to do XYZ, because I'm not going to buy the next one, right?
right. Yeah, and that's the whole point. Like we have systems and habits that hopefully we've taught you a little bit on. We'd love to unpack more of them. We will in the coming weeks, but we also teach our children that are going to be their own adults, their own humans. They're going to make mistakes. We made mistakes. And so that's the whole point of life. So, Matt, I don't know if you have anything else you want to share. If
Nope,
not,
that's
we'll
it.
see you guys next week.